I guess I'm not sure if we're live or not, but I'm apologize if we are live and the technology is not working properly. Are you with me, Jesse?
I am. It looks like we are live. It looks like we're a minute in already.
Yeah, yeah. We apologize for this, but glad that you are patient. And welcome to the chat room. Alex Vale is right there to greet us as always. Good morning to you, Alex. One of my very first Twitter followers, Jesse. I mean, he was one of the top. He could have been one of the first 100. And that kind of still blows my mind, humbly said. When you get over 10,000, you kind of think like, wow, did you ever think that what you're doing was going to be followed by encourage people to follow that many times? That's the crazy stuff about it. But I am pleased to say that you and I are running second and third in college football on a very prestigious list of handicappers that is about 50 in length. And that I am proud to be with you second and third, and you're 30-7, I think, against the spread.
I think it's actually 32-7, John.
32-7. I underestimated him again, folks. I mean, how can you underestimate Jesse Schule with that attire that he's wearing there? It just goes to show that clothing costs and living costs in Thailand must be lower than the great Northeast of the United States.
Well, I picked up this hat for a cool $2 on the side of the road on my vacation in Penang, Malaysia. Tailor-made suit, not very expensive here either.
Looks great. Looks like a $500 hat out of Nordstrom's. No question. Anyway, let's get to the talk World Series, of course. I mean, look, this is old.
I figured you're the happiest guy on the internet this morning.
This sweatshirt is probably 15, 16 years old. Back from the previous heyday when I did have season tickets there. But what a game! And how can you? The whole thing I've learned with the Phillies, especially in the playoffs, is that they're never done. And when they're down, no matter how many runs, for example, in my written content over at gambling.com, I did the write up for the game, and I always put in a live in-game strategy. So in that live in-game strategy, if the Phillies were down through 3 innings, which they were, grab what you can live. And I was told by a lot of people they were getting, upwards of minimum of plus 700, 750. One guy said he got plus 1,100, which was in the middle of an at bat in that before the Phillies scored. And that's just cool stuff that, when you hear that people are actually benefiting from the content and it actually works. Even if it's pizza money, it's good stuff. And believe me, don't think for a second this Phillies team is going to say, "Oh, we got the split in Houston. That's what we wanted." This team is totally different in character than that, and maybe some teams do lighten up a little bit after they win Game 1, but this team is going to have the pedal to the metal again. And lastly, Jesse, I can't even believe how good Rob Thompson's calls and his moves have been to put Alvarado in the 5th inning, where he has never pitched. He's usually 7, 8, or 9. And to roll the dice and say, okay, I'm all in. Here it is. We got to win this game or we're in deep, deep trouble. And then to pull it off the way he did. And then with Robertson closing it out, I mean, I was so happy for him too, because he's been up and down throughout his career, but he seems to be on now. But what did you think of the game?
John, we might have to go back and review the tapes because I seem to remember an episode of Manny's Irish Pub with you and I and Tony Mejia and Tony Finn, and we were looking at the price for the Phillies to win the National League pennant, and we were just debating whether it was the better play to bet them to win it in the regular season or in the postseason. And I believe it was a really sharp-dressed fella that said, I think the postseason's the way to go. I think they're too far back at this point, but once they get in, it's anybody's game. And whatever the odds were at that time, that bet obviously is already cashed.
Well, that person, folks, was Jesse Schule. And we were discussing the 3-horse race in the National League East that day, and that was a great analysis. I did put pizza money on the Phillies NLCS to make the NLCS at that time was 24-1. That's what that
Wow.
was. The NLCS then later on, and a few weeks later, was right around the same price to win it because they had gone on that winning streak right after our show. But not that there's any correlation to that. But yeah, that worked out really well. And I really haven't eaten pizza in the last month, but I know I have a war chest of pizzas waiting for me. I just don't want to jinx it by getting one in now and ruin tonight's game by eating one, especially during the game. That just would not be very polite at all. But I'll make it very clear right now. I am on the Phillies again tonight, and I'm going to do the same strategy. If they get down early against Wheeler, and then here it is. And if it doesn't win, it doesn't win. We're all playing with house money if you back the Phillies. And if you're just doing pizza money size bet, you're able to not worry about it if it loses. But I think they are going to win game 2 tonight. Don't forget, Houston Astros played Washington, the Nationals, what was that, 2019. And every single game in that 7-game series, the road team won. So the Astros are accustomed to this, and it doesn't mean that the road team can't go to Philly then and win too. But we'll have to take it one step at a time. But I've never seen anything like this in all my baseball life. It's just one of a kind, and it is a thing of beauty to see it. I mean, it really is.
You've probably heard me say it before, John, that I really like to fade teams coming off those kind of disturbing losses. When you blow a big lead, you lose in extra innings. Those type of losses tend to take a lot out of you, and it usually takes a game or two to get your head right, to get focused. I mean, maybe perhaps in the World Series that's different, but I really like betting against teams coming off those kind of losses.
Andres in the chat room says, John, you look cold. Well, I could be a total jerk and say, well, Jesse, that's because you and I are running so hot.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean that's not even funny. But no, I'm okay. It's just a sweatshirt. It says Philadelphia Phillies on it. I had to wear it, but I'm not cold. But thanks for asking. So actually, what I'm trying to do is avoid not getting a cold. That's running around the Princeton area pretty rampantly. It's not COVID. It's just the normal stuff that we've always had in years past. But anyway, Jesse, enough of baseball. Because I know if I talk about baseball and Philadelphia and the Eagles any more than I already have, you're going to mention the Sixers. And while we're at it, the Sixers win last night without Joel Embiid. So, what if they do go the course of the Phillies? They fire Doc Rivers after about 25 games, and then they go on this unbelievable tear. It seems like that might be the recipe for other teams to follow. Fire your manager, let an unknown guy from Canada come into the head coaching position and just take you to the promised land.
Well, you got me. I'm a believer. I think that is the strategy.
Let's talk about Penn State, Ohio State. This is, against the spread wise, James Franklin, the head coach of Penn State, has always brought the load against Ohio State. Sometimes it has not worked out. They do cover the spread and lose the game. And I'm just wondering, playing at home, it's going to be a stripe out, Jesse. I know you like the Penn State whiteouts like we had last week. And, that crowd took Minnesota right out of it. And even if you're experienced as an opponent in a whiteout, it doesn't matter. That experience doesn't really pay any dividends. And, for those that have not seen the stripe out or the whiteout or just a regular Penn State game, when you're watching the TV today, when Ohio State has got the ball and going left to right, the stadium is going to be monumentally loud to begin with. But when it gets to that right side of the end zone, that's where the student body is. And it's a large student body. It basically takes up the whole end zone and then some of the corner areas, and they really get into it. That you cannot call audibles. It's a silent count. A lot of false starts occur and a lot of quarterback snaps because the defense just watches the center and his hand, and as soon as that twitches, they're gone. So that's going to be interesting to see how Ohio State deals with that. And one last thing, Herb Street said today that Ohio State hasn't played anybody, so we're going to find out today how good Ohio State is. And I thought that was really pretty bold, given that he was the quarterback at Ohio State a long time ago. What's your take on this game?
Well, I don't think we can talk about Ohio State without referencing our discussion last week about Iowa and Ohio State and our pizza bet money. And I said that Iowa's offense is so bad that there's the only way they can trend now is some regression to the mean, that they can't possibly be that bad without it having some improvements. And I was wrong about that, but I wasn't wrong about the defense. And I mean, honestly, if Iowa had a punted on first down, they easily would have covered that game. I mean, their defense was far more of an offensive threat than their offense was. But if you look at the numbers, they held Ohio State to 360 total yards. That's a pretty low number for that Ohio State team. The Buckeyes only ran for 66 yards, and the Buckeyes were 3 of 13 on third down against Iowa. They were forced into taking a lot of field goals. So I guess what that tells me is you can defend this Buckeyes offense. And Penn State, I don't think, has the defense that Iowa has, but that was in Ohio State. So, the difference between playing in Columbus and playing here at Happy Valley, I think we're going to see, home field advantage, as you mentioned. I'm not that familiar with a stripe out, but it sounds pretty scary to me. I know one thing, Sean Clifford's a hell of a lot better than Spencer Petras. I don't think he's going to throw 3 pick sixes in the game. At least I hope not. So I do think that if the Nittany Lions can avoid turnovers, they should be in this game.
I think so too. And Sean Clifford is, a 6-year guy because of the COVID rules, and that experience of having played against Ohio State this many times is invaluable. So I agree that I don't think you're going to see them turn the ball over. I don't think you're going to see too many mistakes by Penn State, and Ohio State's going to have to earn this one. They are backed. Penn State is backed by a pretty good system here. Game with 2 teams winning 80% or more of their games. Obviously, Ohio State's undefeated. Ohio State, being the opponent here, has gone over the spread. In other words, they've covered the spread by 49 or more points over the last 5 games. So that is a metric where if it's that much over the spread, sooner or later they're going to become overvalued. And this system, combined with the win percentages of the opponents, has gone 34 and 15 for 69.4% against the spread since the 2015 season, which is 7 years, and 59%, which isn't bad, on the over. And I think the 2 makes sense. Penn State and the over, for those that want to do teasers, which I hate teasers, because there's a reason they call it a teaser, because it teases you to do something that looks like it's going to be an easy winner, and it ends up not being that. But I think if Penn State is going to pull off the upset, I tend to believe that Penn State will certainly at least go over their team total. What's next, Jesse? What do you think we should go to here next?
Well, the Syracuse Notre Dame is a big game.
Oh, that is
probably a lot of people interested in that.
Yeah, big shout out to Jordan, the executive producer of ESPN Syracuse. I'm privileged and honored to be on that show every week at 1:30 on Fridays. And Jordan comes on our show every Saturday morning. But priorities. I guess our show isn't quite as important as the ESPN Syracuse pregame show.
Not yet, but we're getting there.
But yeah, Jordan, a great guy, and gave us a lot of kudos over the week. That's for sure. So
let me ask you this, John. Do you think they got anybody over at ESPN Syracuse that's hitting 82% with college football this season?
No.
I don't think so either.
No. Not even close. I might be the closest one to you. Just saying. But I think the hype here with Notre Dame being so overranked in the beginning of the season, which you and I agreed upon, and I think we agree upon it just about every preseason. And that's how the market works. It's not, Vegas sets a line. They don't care who wins games or who win a prop bet or wins total or whatever. They're setting a line where they have equal action on both sides, just like a market maker would price the stock of Apple Computer. It's the same process. But I still think Notre Dame is still overvalued, and they're on a 4-game win streak now, and they're coming into Syracuse, and that Carrier Dome, I think that's what they still call it, is going to be rocking. Early in the year, there was complaints that they weren't getting the attendance while they were on the win streak. And they're not going to fall flat because of what happened in Clemson last weekend. That was a game they could have won, no question about it. 21-10 in the fourth quarter. And it was one of those games where I was on it, Jesse, and I think you were too. And it was like the middle of the third quarter, boy, this is looking like a win. And then at the end there, it did get a little dicey.
I've been riding Cuse since week one, man. I think I've had Cuse
Yep.
every week since week one. Maybe when they were playing a non-conference game and they were a 25-point favorite or a 30-point favorite, I laid off them. But in all their big games and all their conference games, I've been on them all year. But I'm off them this week, and I'm not betting against them. If you made me play this game, I would take Syracuse because, as you mentioned, and I religiously fade Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's always been in my lifetime. They've been one of the more overrated programs in college football because they never tend to play enough big games, and they don't get the quality wins to deserve the hype that they tend to get, in my opinion. And I'm not a big believer in the dream crusher phenomenon that people talk about it, because a lot of the pundits that we work with, John, that our colleagues are on Notre Dame this week because of that. And I don't really buy into that, but I did mention about the World Series. I don't like betting on teams coming off those really heartbreaking losses. And I am a little concerned about Dino Babers' coaching. Last week, when they had that big lead, they screwed up. They screwed a lot of things up. I mean, Clemson's the better team. You expect Clemson to come back, but Clemson doesn't come back in that game unless you let them. And I think Dino Babers left the door open there. I mean, Sean Tucker having 5 carries or whatever he had, I think he had 5 carries. That's 12 carries too few.
Yeah, it is. I actually have a betting system here, I think, on it's the Dolphins and the Lions. I had one for Syracuse. That was a really good one. And maybe we can circle back to it later. I'm just trying to pull it up here. Maybe I can just read it off. Let's see here. One more second. Sorry for the delay. That's what's good about these live shows. All right, I think I got it. All right, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. All right, here's the. I used my predictive model, Jesse, on this one. 80% probability says the model that Cuse will gash the Irish for 175 or more rushing yards. Cuse is playing at home. Cuse is priced as a less than 7-point favorite. In past games over the last 10 years, Syracuse, when they've met or exceeded those performance measures, are 7-1 straight up and against the spread, 88%. If Syracuse then has the same or fewer number of turnovers and rushes for 175 or more yards playing at home, 6-0 straight up and against the spread, covering the spread by an average of 14 points per game. That's why I'm on Syracuse, and that's why it's a 8-unit premium bet to my clients. Time will tell.
I'm just wondering if somebody's taken a microphone and shoved it in Babers' face and said, is Sean Tucker healthy? Why did he carry the ball 5 times? I think that's something that I'd like to hear the answer for.
The media up there in that part of the Northeast is very, very respectful of head coaches for the most part. And I guess that's probably the reason, by comparison, Belichick got drilled quite a bit this past week after that debacle. And he just, did his usual stuff. And, he talks like he's at I don't know like he's watching paint dry for the last 5 hours.
Did you see that one of those picks actually hit the camera cable?
No.
I think it was Mac Jones' second interception, the one that got him pulled from the game. It actually hit the ESPN camera cable and landed in the defender's hands. So just a heads up, it wasn't his fault, that one.
Well, that's good. His accuracy was a little off, to say the least. But we'll find out against the Jets this week, that's for sure. Andrews here wants to see West Virginia and
I think
Texas
he means
A&M.
TCU he's talking about, right?
Yeah, maybe he's talking about two different games. He
He either
like
wants
both
us to
those
break
teams.
down West Virginia and TCU, or he likes both those teams, West Virginia and A&M. I could see somebody making the mistake though of Texas Christian, Texas A&M.
It's easy to do. For what it's worth, I'm definitely leaning in favor of West Virginia and Texas A&M here to get the job done. Texas A&M was number 6 in the preseason, which was clearly wrong. But are they that bad that they deserve to be an underdog at home? I think they'll take care of Mississippi today. And West Virginia's in a spoiler role here with TCU, and that's a tough place to play in West Virginia. That's an enthusiastic crowd as well. What do you think?
I really wanted to be on West Virginia today, but I didn't see the line value in it. You know what I mean? It seemed like, given TCU's record, given all the big wins TCU's had, if you could get an overhyped TCU team and an inflated line, but I mean, when you look at the two teams and the records and the quarterbacks and everything else, the line seems pretty fair if you believe in TCU, which I don't necessarily. I'm not convinced TCU is the best team in the Big 12. I think it's worth pointing out all those big wins so far have come against teams who have had injuries to their starting quarterback. So they actually haven't beaten a quality opponent with a healthy quarterback yet, even though they have that impressive resume. But yeah, like I said, if it was like 9.5, I'd be all over West Virginia. But I thought the 7.5 was, it just wasn't the best bargain. I like West Virginia, but they didn't give me enough points for me to take it.
Yeah, so that does to me in-game betting strategy for people to consider. Not Andres here is definitely. Hope he's listening to this one. Is you do 50% pre-flop West Virginia at 7.5, preferably 7.5, and then you literally hope that TCU scores first. Maybe they get a field goal, but I usually wait for the first touchdown to be scored by the opponent that I'm betting against. So TCU could score a field goal in their first drive. That doesn't get me excited. But if they then score a touchdown and go up 10-zip, then you're going to get some really good value in West Virginia. It's very rare in college football, unless it's a complete mismatch and a favorite of like 30 points, where start to finish is the favorite leads the whole way, especially in games in the SEC where it's rock and roll. There's multiple scores, and then the opponent comes back with multiple scores. So just keep that in mind, I think. What other game did I want to mention here? Let me see what this slide is here. No, that's NFL. Oh, that's the Steelers-Eagles. Well, we can do that for our best bet round when we get to it. But let's do at least one more college here. I'm looking at the board here. Well, we got the cocktail party that we're not allowed to say anymore in Jacksonville, Florida. Neutral field, Florida Gators are a 23.5 point underdog to the Georgia Bulldogs. And a long time ago, before the season started, this was lined as I believe it was 8.5 point favorite Georgia. Before the season started, the opening lines at the Circa. So it's gone up.
And that's after Georgia was the national champion too. So it's not like Georgia is anywhere different than they expected Georgia to be.
Yeah, I think the recency bias is on Florida, right? Mm-hmm. Underperforming. But if there's ever a time where Florida brings its best, and Georgia does too, but Florida's had some upsets in this cocktail bowl, and I don't see it happening today. But I don't have anything really pertinent to say about this game. Clearly, it's one that is going to have scoring on both sides. The total is 56.5, so that implies that Georgia is going to be north of 38 points based on what the market is telling us right now. And Georgia is awesome against the spread when they score 38 or more. It's in the high 70% range. So Florida's going to have to keep Georgia probably under 31 to have a chance. And Florida might not even score 14 points in this game, and I could be dead wrong. But I
The
would
problem
lean.
with Florida is that they're just so inconsistent. But on his best day, Richardson's capable of going toe to toe with Hendon Hooker as he did earlier this season. So on his best day, they could make this a game, but his best days tend to come far and few between. I think if you like Florida here, you probably like the over, and conversely, if you like Georgia, you got to like the under because if Florida scores any points at all, it's gonna go over likely.
I agree. I totally agree. Alex got one here that's a good one. I do have a situational angle on this game. It supports Auburn. I like Auburn quite a bit in this game, but it didn't have enough juice to really get to the window. But on my Twitter timeline, for those that are listening, if you want to see the 2-minute video, it's probably like a minute and a half. I go through this betting system, and you can take your time then and write down the parameters so that you can track it. So we're betting on dogs between 3 and 9.5 points. The dog is coming off back-to-back humiliating double-digit losses to conference foes, which Auburn is. Game is played weeks 5 through 9, which is basically the core part of the season. It's gone 37 and 43 straight up, 46% on the money line, which is pretty good ROI. But more impressive is 70% against the spread, 54 and 23, hitting 70%, as I said. And if the foe, being Arkansas, has the lower yards per point ratio, and what that means is how many yards does a team have to score to put up 1 point on the scoreboard? The lower the number, the more efficient the offense is. So Arkansas has the more efficient offense. It doesn't help. Auburn then goes into a system or a result that is 23 and 19 straight up, which is pretty damn good for a dog. 29 and 12 and one push for 72% winners. And I have a slight lean towards the under as well based on the models in this game. So I think Auburn wins it.
I think Auburn's been totally underrated this year. I go back to the Penn State Michigan game. Before that game, we were talking about people were saying, well, Penn State hasn't played anybody. And, it's a down year for Auburn. They're not what they used to be. But I think it's still not easy to go into that stadium and win games on the road at Auburn. I think people forget that. I think that, I think it's like I say, I think there's still a force to be reckoned with, and especially at home. So I wouldn't be surprised if Auburn wins the game.
And like this one from Alex here. Georgia since 2018, 0 and 10 under in neutral fields. Surrounded by 70,000 fans that have an alcohol content level of at least 0.9 or 0.09. Well, at 0.9, you'd be dead, I guess. 0.09. That's where you're just feeling good and you're not stupid. Anything over 0.2, I think people get stupid. But seriously, that's a good trend, Alex. And Ken here is a big follower of us, too. So, and we got this William here. Welcome to the show. Oklahoma State, K-State. Now, that's a very tough one. Let's talk about this one, and then we'll do the Michigan State, and then we'll do final bets. So in this matchup, Big 12, a lot is at stake here. Oklahoma State is the better ranked team, the lower ranked team going up against K-State. K-State at home. Just as a line that is basically, as I call it, between the threes. What do you think of this one, Jesse?
Well, I did break this down on a show just a couple days ago, and what I came up with was well, I mentioned that I was 3-1 last Saturday with college football. My one loser was this K State team, and of course they were up 28-10 early against TCU. And like I said, TCU's been getting lucky, playing quarterbacks that have been injured, and Adrian Martinez goes out, Will Howard goes out, and the game just goes south. Um, I think if Martinez is back, I think there's an argument to be made that Kansas State is the best team in the Big 12 with Adrian Martinez healthy, ready to go. I would lean towards Kansas State. I think Oklahoma State. I mean, you got to give tons of respect to Gundy. Great coaching. I think the defense has dropped off a little bit after Knowles left. They're not stopping people, and on the road against that running game of Kansas State. If they've got their starting quarterback, I would lean towards Kansas State. If they don't, if Martinez is banged up, playing hurt, or not playing at all, I would sort of lean toward the under in the game.
Yeah, I like the under too, Jesse. So, for those that are watching and like Kansas State, you'll like to hear this. They're 24-5 against the number in home games after a game with a turnover margin of -2 or worse. They're also 7-0 against the spread after allowing a whopping 475 or more total yards in their previous game over the last 3 seasons. And again, I've been saying this a lot this year. I don't remember ever saying it as much as I do, but across all sports, is that when a team is coming off a horrid performance, whether they win or lose, good head coaches like Saban, for example, they drill the defense and they get everything fixed as best they can. And what happens? The next game goes under. So that clearly supports our lean here on the under. And lastly, let's take a look at Michigan State here, which this line, the team that has upset Michigan the most of any rivalry matchup in the country is Michigan State. And they've done it multiple times as 17-point dogs or more. But I don't have the guts to pull the trigger this year and say Michigan State is so cheap. I just can't wait to get to the window and bet them. It's a scary game. I'm off of it. Do you have any thoughts?
Probably the best advice is just stay away. I wouldn't feel confident in any making any bets on this game. All bets are off. Like you said, Michigan State hasn't shown us anything. Their defense has been atrocious. You do have the revenge spot, but I'm not about to lay 23 points in a rivalry game between these two teams. There's just no way.
Yeah, and I agree. And here's another thing. When the Circa priced this game before the season started, Michigan was an 8.5-point home favorite. They're now 23 in college and the NFL. Whenever the price has moved more than 7 points, it gets my attention. And I used that in the Circa contest last year as a contrarian betting play. So when it's moved this much, it is overshot. And the value in the game would be to take Michigan State. But I think I'll just do what I said and do what you're doing, Jesse, and just see how it goes. And, if Michigan wins 56-0, I'll go, boy, it's a good thing we didn't bet that one. But I would lean Michigan State. That's all. I guess let's do our final round of best bets. And I did have that graphic, and I'm going to use that in the NFL because I like this one quite a bit. We're going to bet the under when the total's between 42 and 49. The road team is getting outscored by 7 or more points per game, which is Pittsburgh, and they're obviously in a rebuild type of situation. Road team's over-under streak is at least 1. So in other words, at least their previous game played under the total. 41-13, under 76% winning under bets. Steelers, Eagles. And one thing about the Eagles, don't expect regression just yet with the Eagles being undefeated. Don't assume that this is too many points because it's probably not. Undefeated teams from week 4 on out that are playing at home with rest coming off that bye week are 10-0, Jesse, and 9-1 against the spread. So I would not be bold enough to say that Pittsburgh's going to give the Eagles a game. this game could be an ugly one, and hopefully it just is like a 28-0 game or 28-3. One last thing, that defense of the Eagles, the offense gets all the accolades, but that defense is right up there with Dallas. And I have that game circled on the calendar already because that'll be the second game, and that's going to be a monster game. A lot of implications. I can see it coming. Dallas seems to be getting their act together again, and it's not going to be easy for the Eagles to run away with the division crown, even though they're undefeated right now. So that's my best bet. Under Pittsburgh,
the best
Philadelphia.
division in football, the NFC least.
Yeah, and then
they're not calling us the NFC least anymore. That's what they must be saying.
I guess it's the NFC more. That's the opposite of least, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm. Most. Or the NFC most.
Some people in Pennsylvania say the NFC East is more better. A little slang. Anyway, what do you have for a best bet for the show?
I'm going to look to the Pac-12 in a late game. You got USC coming off the bye week. Of course, they lost 43-42 at Utah. And I know a guy who had Utah on the money line in that game, which is why you take the money line, folks. You don't lay 2.5 points when you could just bet them to win straight up, because some of these games end up being decided by 1 or 2 points. Anyways, a real get right game for USC, could get back on track. They've had a week off to, as you said, fine tune everything. I'm sure that their game script in the beginning, the first few drives, they're going to be explosive. They're facing an Arizona Wildcats team that can't defend anybody. I believe Arizona is allowing over 40 points per game, but you'd think that USC would be able to punish them a little more than that. USC averages over 40 points per game, but against the 126th ranked Arizona defense, I like them to go for 50. Arizona, they throw the ball around the field. They got a decent quarterback. They got a great receiver in Cowing. I expect Arizona to put some points on the board, turn the ball over a few times, lose big, but, push that total over the number. The number is 75. I rarely bet on numbers that big, but these teams play so fast, and it's going to be all offense. So I think it's going to go over that 75.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Jesse. Again, with live in-game betting, if for some reason these two teams come out and it looks like they're playing in the mud, so to speak, and it's slower than expected, with the number that high, you're probably going to get a chance in the mid 60s to upper 60s to bet the over. And conversely, if it starts out like gangbusters and the teams there's no defense and it's 14-14 with 6 minutes to go in the first quarter, you're probably going to be approaching 90, and you bet the under, and then you try to develop like a 20 to 25 point middle, and this is that type of game where I think it's worthy to watch and see how it goes. Anyway, I guess that brings us to the end of the show. Any final thoughts, Jesse? Any big plays you got going today?
Yeah, I'm fully loaded. I got soccer. I got NHL. I got all sports today. NHL. I got the baseball game coming off a winning day. Of course, I did mention the 32-7 year-to-date record with college football. So really excited. Can't wait to kick back and watch the games. And you guys should come see me at Winning Cappers.
Yep, winningcappers.net and predictiveplaybook.com. Two of the go-to sites for all of us. I have a 5% max 10-unit bet going in college football. It's on the evening card. That doesn't mean you wait till the night to buy it, because you're probably going to forget during the day that I have it out there. But you can get both the Jesse's and my picks at winningcappers.net and predictiveplaybook.com. I'm 31-11 with these 5% max bets over the last 2 seasons. What am I? 13-4 in college football the last 2 years with these 10-unit bets, which are, game of the month, game of the year. I just don't like saying those words because people get too hyped up about it. It's just one big play over the course of a season. So anyway, I guess that'll bring us to the end of the show, Jesse. Why don't you take us out of here with the things I always like to say?
All right, everybody out there, remember, Bet with your head and not over it, and may all the wins be yours.
Well done.